Hi everybody and welcome back. My name is Triston from UtahSEO.Ninja and today I am a little tired. So I had one of these things for lunch and it's raining outside and it's cold and I just want to take a nap. So we're going to make this video short.
What is this Dutty Moonshiner of which you speak?
In our last video we talked about Weebly SEO and specifically one of the things that we brought up was site speed. And so I figured we'd dive into that a little bit more today and show you some of the things that you can do to improve the loading speeds of your websites. And that will help you to rank a little bit higher and it'll also make the experience a little bit more pleasant for your users. And there are a couple of ways that we can do this, and I really want to cover 3 of them with you. So the first one that we'd normally look at is cleaning up any sort of extra or unnecessary code that's on the site itself. Now this is actually a little bit more difficult with Weebly, especially if you're not familiar with code, and typically I would just say that it's best to just leave this part alone, unless, like I said, you know what you're doing. Otherwise, you're probably going to be best off looking at some of the other options that we're going to be talking about. But if you do know what you're doing, go to Theme, Edit HTML/CSS, and this is where you'll find all your styles and everything else right here. So, very helpful resource. Again, if you don't know what you're doing, probably best to leave that part alone because you can break the site, and I've done it myself. The other thing I want to talk about briefly is loading up assets from other websites. So for example, with this site right here, then we have some assets from another site. Specifically, we have this map down here. Now this is actually Google Maps map, if that makes sense. So what this is a little bit of code, and it basically says, hey, to see what goes in this box, pull this information from google.com and show it here. And so whenever this page is loaded up, that little script, that little bit of code will run as like a little program, and it will go out and it'll get this image or this bit of information from Google, and it will bring it back and show it here on the site. And so that is something else that can slow the loading speed of your site down. Now, an interesting thing about this is when you first come to a site, then the first thing that's going to load up is going to be this part up here. Or at least this is the first thing we want to load up, because this is the part that your client or that your visitor is going to see. And then as they scroll down, obviously they're going to take a little bit of time to scroll down. They're not just going to grab and go straight down to the bottom and see what's down at the bottom of the page. They're going to scroll down a little bit, read what's going on. It's like, okay, here we're looking for services, here's what's going on. And then they scroll down a little bit at a time. So you can have heavier images or other things on the page as long as it's down towards the bottom and below what's called the fold. The fold is this first part of the site. It's everything's going to be seen at the very beginning when the site first pulls up. This comes from newspapers, so like how they'll fold a newspaper in half? Everything that's on the top half of that fold is above the fold and everything else is below the fold. So typically you want your above the fold section to be crisp, clean, load quickly, and to quickly sell or communicate whatever it is that you're doing on this site. And then everything else can load up a little bit more slowly towards the bottom of the page. Here's another example of something else that's being pulled from another site. This is a YouTube video, and so we have the same thing. There's a bit of code here that says everything that goes within this box is being pulled from YouTube. Now, the biggest issue when we pulled up our report on our site, this one right here, was actually the loading time for the images. Specifically, this image, this one wasn't too bad, but then it was this one, and then it was this one. Now the reason that pictures take up so much time is because these pictures are actually being stored on the Weebly server, okay? And so whenever you come to the site, your browser, your computer actually has to download these pictures and then display them on your browser. And as you can imagine, that can take a little bit of time. Sometimes it's a couple of seconds, sometimes it happens instantly, sometimes it takes a long time. And it will depend on how big the image itself is. So for example, this one was actually the smallest of the 3. But if we look at this one, then this is actually a pretty good sized image. And not so much in the size of the image itself, but the size of the image file. And I wasn't actually able to pull up these images because they're on my designer's computer and not on mine. So what I did is I went and I found this right here. It's supposed to be a 4K image. It's actually really nice. I'm using it as my background now. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to show you guys a couple of ways that you can compress an image like this. So let's start off by showing you a few different versions of this if I can. So right here we have the 3 images that I put together for this. This first one here is the original image. Okay, this is the great big huge one. As you can see, it says the dimensions are 3840 by 2160 pixels, and it is 7.70 megabytes big. That's pretty good size. Let's go ahead and set this as our background real quick so I can give you an example of what it looks like. So very nice, crisp, clean, clear image. Very sexy. I love it. Okay. Then what I did is I went and I created a much smaller version of this image, and I actually did that using Paint. So what I did was I clicked over here on resize, and then I told it to bring this picture down to 20% of its original size. So it went from being really big to being about this big. So let's go ahead and cancel this real quick, and I'll show you what that one looks like. We'll set that as our desktop background. There we go. Now you can see that this is a lot blurrier than the original image was. In fact, let me pull that one back up so you can see the difference real quick. That's the original, and this is the compressed version. Okay. Now, normally for something like this, it's not going to be a huge deal on a website. And the reason why is because you're not going to be looking at the image this big on a website. This is the full 1080p size screen that I'm recording in right now. If you're watching this on YouTube, then you're probably watching this on YouTube already. Then the image probably won't look that different because it's still going to be compressed. You're going to be looking at it on a much smaller size screen. But I wanted to show you something else real quick. Well, before we do that, so the image size for this one is, it was shrunken down to 768 by 432 pixels. So that's a very drastic size difference. And it went down to 1.79 KB, which is roughly, it's 20% of the original. So it's a pretty big difference. Now, another thing that I did here was I wanted to make this image a little bit smaller, and so I made a different version of it. And I brought this one down to just 1080 pixels. So we're going to set that as our backdrop real quick. And there you go. That actually looks pretty good. And that's because this image has been optimized for this specific size screen. Let me show you the difference real quick. We're going to switch back over to the 4K version. And that's the 4K version. And that's the 1080 version. So again, 4K, 1080. And I can only make out the very slightest of differences here along the tree line, and then some of the rocks that show up over here. That's really the only difference. And if you're just looking, if you didn't see that little bit of movement, I doubt you'd even notice the difference. And so if you wanted to, you could just bring the image down to the specific size that you need, and then you'd be just fine. And this one right here, pull that up. So this one is 1920 pixels by 1080 pixels, and it comes up to 559 kilobytes. So again, it's significantly smaller than this one, and the image is actually about half the size. So, and as you can imagine, this is going to load way faster than this one. This is probably going to take like half a second, and this one, according to our last test results, would actually probably take about 12 seconds to load up. So you can see that's a very significant difference. Now, I did that using Paint, and then I also used Photoshop. And in Photoshop, if you want to do this, what you do is you go to File, Export. Then I like to save for web. I'm sure there's other ways to do it, but this is the one that I know how to use. First thing that I do is I switch it over to a JPEG image, and then you can set this size. We're going to go 10, 0, like that. And so it's 50% of the actual size of the image, and we can actually make this even smaller if we wanted to. This quality is now set to 30%, and the image itself is going to be half as big, and so we're definitely going to be saving a lot of space on our website by doing it this way. Now, if you don't have either of those tools, then there is another one that I came across that I kind of liked, and that was this one right here, Optimizilla, and it did a pretty good job. So this actually brought the file size down by quite a bit. The original was 7.7, this is 7.8, but it was 7.7. They brought it down to a 1.4. And this is still a little big, I think. I think it'll still take a little bit longer than we probably would want it to as far as loading up on your page. but if it's further down on the site, then nobody should ever notice. And then all you do is you download it. Now to set this up, all you have to do is click over here on Upload Files, pick an image that you like, and then it will go through, scan it, and then it will give you an idea of what it'll look like. We brought the quality down by just 10%, but the file size has dropped by about 25%, so it's very, very significant. So something to keep in mind. Finally, and one last thing I wanted to bring up, if you guys are interested in going this route, and in order to do this, I'm pretty sure you're going to need to have your hosting set up somewhere outside of Weebly. I haven't done this myself, but it is something that came recommended by a couple of my colleagues. You can use Cloudflare, which is a tool that kind of helps manage the back end of user engagement and how the servers interact with each other and things like that. And if this is something that you're interested in, I said definitely come and take a look at this and see if it's something that will help for you. But what it does is it kind of optimizes the way that users can get to your website, the way that content is downloaded and things like that. And then it can also help significantly increase the speeds of your website. I do believe that you have to have a site hosted with something like HostGator or GoDaddy in order for this to actually work, because you do need to be able to edit like some of the DNS settings. But I'm going to dive into this a little bit deeper, and if you guys are interested in it, then once I have it figured out, then we'll go ahead and make another tutorial on it. But it does seem like another viable option if you need to further increase the speed of your website. But that's the information that I wanted to share with you guys today. And so again, we talked about the way that our site is actually put together and optimized, putting content above the fold. We talked about compressing images. We talked about pulling in data from other websites, like with our YouTube video and our maps. One thing I forgot to mention is that you want to make sure that you are using files formats or image formats that are going to be smaller. So like this is actually a PNG, and that's one of the reasons that it's such a big and heavy file, even though the image itself isn't really that large. So if we were to switch this over to like a JPEG, then that would solve quite a few of our problems, and that's on our list of things to do today. And then the other thing that we talked about briefly was using a CDN in order to improve your site performance. And by doing these things, you should be able to significantly increase the speed of your websites, and a faster website is going to rank better, and it's also going to provide a better experience for your user. And so if that is an issue that you're running into with your own website, I would definitely take a look at these different options and see what you can do to improve it. But my name's Triston from UTSEO.Ninja. We're a digital marketing company where we help to connect the dots between your business and your customers. And so once your site is set up, and once you're ready to scale and to start making money from it, and you need more traffic, then that's when you come to us, and then we can help you with that. We offer these free tutorials. Right now we're doing them 2 times a week. We hope to actually expand to do more videos. And so if you have found this to be helpful, if you'd like to see more content like this from us in the future, make sure to subscribe. Then also hit the like button so that we know that people are watching and enjoying the content that we're putting out. If you do have any other questions for us, feel free to email us, or you can leave a comment in the comment section below. That's what it's there for. And then we'll do our best to answer all of them as we can. But that'll do it for me. I'm going to go back and enjoy the rest of my burrito. Have yourself an excellent day, and I will see you guys in the next video.